Welcome, welcome. It is Thursday. We are back. I'm feeling good. Chris is a little bit ropey today after five-a-side, but we're here. Thursday would not be the same without a little bit of away days. And you know what? We've got some breaking news, Chris. Breaking news.
We have.
So, Eddie Howe has agreed in principle to be the new manager of Newcastle United, potentially on a 2.5 year deal in Rising. As far as we're aware, they are just now finalising the backroom staff. I think talking to one or two from Bournemouth, and he wants his backroom staff between 3 or 4 members of staff, and it's pretty much there. Looking like it's going to be signed off tomorrow, and with him having his input in the game on Brighton, but possibly being in the stands. What's your initial reactions to that, Chris?
Do you know what, mate? I hate to be negative. I don't want to. I'm trying my best not to be negative. I think positive. He's an upgrade on Bruce. We spoke about it before. He knows some of the players, some of the key players in the team, which I think is really good. I do think he gets a bit of bad press. I think people do talk down about him, and
Yeah.
say that he's not. He's not a good manager. And to be fair, I think he is a good manager. The problem, the problem that I've got is that unfortunately we were kind of like up here, weren't we, with Emery?
Yeah.
So I feel a little underwhelmed. But I'm going to get behind him. As I've said before, he's a massive upgrade on Bruce, and if he can keep us up, then job well done, isn't it? I don't want to. I don't want to be, the kind of person who gets on his back straight away. He needs to hit the ground running, but at the same time, we need, as I say, we need to get behind him. We need to support him, and we need to, give him that little bit of time. What I'd be interested to know from you, Pete, is with it being Eddie Howe, obviously the way I'm looking at it is that it's a 2.5 year deal. So we've heard.
Yeah.
Could the owners be planning for next season if we're not in the Premier League? Do you think that may have swayed the decision for Eddie Howe? And also, with it being Eddie Howe, do you think another reason why they've gone for him is that perhaps he hasn't got the demands of, say, like a more high caliber manager? So, for example, if in a few weeks we bring in a director of football, would Eddie Howe really have a problem with that? Will he be given control of the transfers, or will he just be happy to be in the hot seat and just be, the manager stroke coach?
It's a great question, Chris. With regards to the contract, I think there is a mindset in terms of if we don't stay in the league. I think there'll be a number of clauses with the contract. To be
Mm,
honest with you, 2.5 year deals rising to 3. Personally, I don't see him fulfilling that contract. I think
no.
within that time, if we stay in the league this season, we'll progress, and I think we'll look at another manager. If I'm honest with you, but look, I'm the opposite to yourself. I'm happy about this. I how much I wanted Eddie Howe in
Yeah,
since
yeah,
last season, and that was under the other regime. However, we're in a predicament where we need to fight for our lives in this league. So I think he's the one. He knows Callum Wilson, he knows Ryan Fraser, he knows Richie, he knows how to get the best out of those guys. And I think he, given time and support and backing from the ownership and the fans, can do the business. So I'm really happy about this, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Look, I know we're going to talk about this with Daz, Mark, Richie, and the boys on Friday in a little bit
absolutely.
more detail. But absolutely buzzing at this. There's a lot of stigmas attached to Eddie Howe for his time at Burnley, and the fact that he got Bournemouth relegated. People are looking too much at the negatives. There's so
Yeah.
many positives there to him, and I'll go in a little bit of detail about that, and so with the lads on Friday. But very, very happy personally. I think he's going to be an excellent signing for us, and I think he will take us to safety. If I'm honest with you, so yeah. Mr. Ava, what the hell's going on?
I think she's saying evening to Pete, and I'm Mr. Avon. I
Yeah, I
think that's
know.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I can't
Um,
shake that tag, can I? Can't shake it.
Never, never.
No.
However, this is Thursday. This is away days. We are previewing a massive, massive game on Saturday.
Yes.
5:30 kickoff at the Amex Stadium against Brighton. And look, there is no better way of discussing this preview without having a couple of hardcore Brighton Hove Albion fans. So welcomes me at this point to invite in Chloe. Welcome, Chloe. And we also have Josh as well from Together BHA podcast. Welcome, guys, to the show. How are you guys both?
Yeah, good.
Good. Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, all good, thank you. I got my vaccine booster today, so I'm sorry if any signal gets interrupted with my 6G that's in my arm now.
And the rest. Brilliant. But guys, welcome to the show. Really, really good to have you on and to discuss this massive game. So look, Brighton flying high, top half of the table. How, in your opinions, has your season gone so far? Were you expecting this type of start to the season? And, you know, what are you, Chloe's already shaking her head, no, wasn't expecting this. And what are you sort of envisioning the next sort of 10, 11 games to look like? Josh, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody expected us to start so well. It was there on paper, right? Like, I'm sure you're aware of the XG champions memes that have been going around all year last year. So the performances were there, the results were not. And this year we've started to see, funnily enough, not as much XG, but the results coming in. You know, we've expanded upon games we had last season where we would take in draws and turn them into wins, or defeats that were being turned into draws. You know, last year we got an outrageous 6 points against City and Liverpool, which we weren't able to match, but they're ridiculous anyway. You know, what were the odds of that? So in the games that matter, we tend to be overperforming in terms of what we did last year, which shows that XG stuff is starting to come home to roost. For me, next 10 to 11 games are a lot nicer than the last 3 or 4 because they were an absolute nightmare. And really, I just want to keep seeing the same thing that we've been seeing. We've had a bit of a rough run, a lot of draws. We've stopped winning games because we've been playing a lot tougher opposition. And really, I just want to see, you know, us to keep doing what we're doing. My eyes are still firmly on 38 points. And until we get to that point, I'm not going to get too ahead of myself. So just keep doing what we're doing, keep converting those draws into wins, and just playing the football that we like to see.
Brilliant. Chloe, what's your sort of early review been of your season?
I think it's been incredible so far. Nobody sort of expected us to do quite this well. I think on paper we had some quite easy games at sort of the first few games, but we struggled against like so-called weaker opposition a lot last season. And we obviously got some wins. We've just done so well this season. Like, it's completely unexpected, and I think we've been a lot more clinical, which was obviously one of our biggest problems. But I disagree. Well, personally, I'm not looking at that 38 total at the moment, because I'm just sort of like, how high can we finish? I was disappointed to see that we slipped down to 7th after all the weekend's fixtures had been played. I'm like, oh, I want top 6. But realistically, I think top 10 would be a nice improvement on last season. And I think we can do it. I think, yeah, we've been really good this season.
Yeah, I have to agree. From the outside looking in, you guys have had a very, very good start. Now, I know, I think you've gone forward without a victory, which yeah, I think Josh touched on as well. But you'd also mentioned that, you know, you faced against sort of tougher opposition. You know, going into, you know, a little bit of detail now, looking at firstly your manager, because he's been getting a lot of praise recently for the work that he's been doing at Brighton. How has he changed your team? You guys go to the games, you see it week in, week out. How has he kind of revamped your team from the sort of the days of Chris Hewton, and what is he doing differently this season, in your opinions, compared to what maybe hasn't gone quite right in previous ones? Go on,
You go.
I think if you compare him to Hewton, I think one thing I have noticed was with Hewton we had quite an aging squad, and Potter has brought in a lot of younger players. We have got quite a young squad now, and obviously that's quite exciting for the future. But I think that probably goes beyond Potter as to how the academy's run and stuff. We obviously play a lot more attacking football now than we did under Hewton. And I feel Potter is good at getting the best out of players. You look at someone like March, who we had under Hewton, but under Potter, he's just a completely different player, really. You were thinking that his time at the club was sort of coming to the end, well, I was, but he's just a completely different player and is now like such a key part of our squad.
Yeah, I would agree with most of that. I think Tony Bloom, when he took us over in 2009, had a pretty clear vision of what he wanted, and that was progressive, exciting football. He appointed Gus Poyet, and he did exactly that. He then appointed Oscar Garcia, who did his best to try and emulate that as well. He brought in Sami Hyypiä, that was an absolute mess, and he kind of became a bit more practical and was like, okay, we've tried to do it the right way. Let's get in Chris, a proven championship manager, and get us up to the promised land that way. And honestly, I thought he played superb football in the championship, but inevitably, he played very defensive in the Premier League. I love him, still a club legend for me. I think for most people, we look back at Hewton very fondly. But the time was right. We were bringing in Dan Ashworth, who is not massively, but quite partly responsible for what we're seeing in the England squad right now. He was that kind of director over the England youth setups prior to coming into the Albion. So, we brought him in with a clear eye for the future. We allowed Potter to bring in his staff with that clear eye forward as well. And the team was very much clearly put out from the outset that this was going to be a young, progressive team that plays nice football. And I think it summed it up when I think we'd played 8 games, I think, Chloe, and Potter was handed a 6-year deal all of a sudden, after having 4 years already. Bloom had already seen enough. Obviously, he sees a lot more behind the scenes, and the players love him. They buy into him. It's clear to see that they all very much do. And like Chloe said, that he's getting the best out of players. And a lot of people say, some managers play to a system and try and fit people in, and that's always, bound to fail. But he has this weird Midas touch where he does exactly that. He plays this 3 at the back system and he likes it. And he seems to get players like Solly March, who was a right winger, become this excellent left wing back. What is that all about? You don't see that very often. That shouldn't be happening. And he keeps doing it. So for me, I love him. If he sees out that 6-year contract, I'd happily see another 6 years. But yeah, I love him.
Brilliant. And you know what? It's interesting you mentioned that. There's a few guys in the chat that mentioned the same about how you mentioned Chris Hewton, because he's still seen very fondly in Newcastle in the same way. He was very harshly sacked by Mike Ashley just as we came back up from the Premier League. He's a very, very likable character, regardless of whether he's still at our clubs or not. So I think that just tells you everything about the man in himself. But I like the point that you mentioned about Potter being able to coach someone like Solly March into sort of turn him into a left back, because that's what he's about. From my point of view, and I'll ask Chris the same as well, is that you get the feeling with Graham Potter that he just loves coaching. He just loves coaching players and trying to make them better. And it's interesting you mentioned about Solly March, because that's what good coaches do. What they do is that they look at players' attributes. You look over the years. I mean, for example, Rio Ferdinand was a striker. People looked at him and thought your attributes are better served at the back. He became a world-class defender. You look at Ashley Cole, was a left winger. They looked at him at Arsenal and go, nah, you're better suited as a left back, one of the best left backs in the Premier League history. A good coach is able to look at someone's raw abilities and go, you know what, you're better suited here. And it seems like he's done that with the likes of Solly March and maybe one or two others. But I'm interested to get Chris's point of view, the sort of the outside looking in, the Newcastle perspective. How are you, Chris, on the sort of balance of how the season's gone? Thinking of how are you feeling about sort of Brighton's season from what you've seen so far?
Do you know what, mate? I think you know my thoughts on Brighton. Like I'm a big fan of Potter. And when we were under Ashley, and they were talking about sacking Bruce and bringing in a replacement, one of the first names I said was Graham Potter, because from watching them, and Josh has already alluded to it, like I must have said about that expected goals thing so many times, because last season they were unlucky. Because with the 8th, Josh, is that right? Me saying that they were 8th in the league in terms of expected goals.
Yeah, I think they're around there. I think our expected points was even higher. I think it was even 6th or 7th, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, this start that they've made, it doesn't surprise me. And I think, as Chloe said, Potter has really coached the players, and you can see he's building something, and that's what's exciting. And I also like the fact that these new players that are coming in, small additions, but they're slowly starting to increase. And already now I class Brighton as probably a top 10 team, because I think they're good enough for that. I really do. I'm a big fan of Trossard. I like Yves Bissouma. Solly March, he's a solid player. And like I know, like Chloe said, he went off the boil a little bit. But whenever I've seen Solly March, as a Newcastle fan, I've always thought, he looks half decent, him. And Neal Maupay is actually in my fantasy footy team. He's a bit of a, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's a bit of a fox in the box, isn't he? Like, he's one of those players. He's constantly, harassing the defenders, and he'll nick a goal here and there, and he's nasty and he's awkward to play against. I honestly, I'm a big fan of them. And what I wanted to ask actually to Chloe and Josh, I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but last season Duffy was on loan at Celtic, wasn't he? And now he's come back, but he's come back with a bit of a bang, hasn't he? I think he's made a good start to the season. Do you agree? And who's lost the place?
Well, it was Ben White, who we obviously sold to Arsenal.
Yeah.
But I think Duffy has surprised like a lot of Brighton fans because he's so well loved by our supporters. But it's really surprised me how well he's actually done coming back into this team. How well he's just slotted back in, like he never left, really.
Yeah, I agree. He had a rough year last year, personally. Celtic is his boyhood club. Like that's the club he dreamt to play for. Like he was very open about it. So that opportunity was huge for him. He lost his dad, who he was very close to at the beginning of their season, and mentally clearly wasn't right. And it then followed on that the fans that he is also a fan of got on his back massively after that, and I think mentally he just wasn't right. And then when you come back and you have a coach like Potter, who is able to do what Potter does, and you're able to play alongside a certain Lewis Dunk, everything just suddenly clicks and becomes a lot easier. Look at the player Ben White is right now to the player that Ben White was last year. And you can see the effect that Lewis has. And that isn't a knock on Ben White. He's going to be a great footballer and a great centre-half, and England will be very lucky to have him for a lot of years. But the difference that Lewis Dunk makes to a centre-half next to him is night and day sometimes.
Yeah, he is a terrific centre-back. Very, very underrated, Lewis Dunk. I remember we was having this talk, Chris, when we were sort of hoping over a year ago the takeover would go through, and I was always looking at our sort of phase one, who will we get in? And we knew we had defensive problems right then. And one of the ones I was talking about was Lewis Dunk. I would have him in a heartbeat. He's one of the top centre backs. He's just a proper defender. We look at defenders nowadays, and it's about, oh, how good are they on the ball? You know, can they play a long distance pass to start a passage of play up? Can they do, you know, this flick or that flick, or can they score goals from corners? You know, to be fair, he can do the lot. But what I like about him more than anything is that he's just a proper defender. He just knows how to defend, and he can organise the defence. So he, right in the middle of, in the heart of that back three, just means that you guys know that you're not going to concede many goals today. And I really like that about him. You know, from when I watched him in the Championship with you guys, when it was sort of as in you guys fighting for that title. You know, he's come on leaps and bounds. Him and Lascelles were probably bang on the same, and Lascelles has regressed massively, and he's just gone way and above. So fantastic player. But look, we'll touch on in a second players that we think are going to trouble each side. But look, I have to ask this. I think the guys in the chat won't be happy if I didn't. You know, it's been around a month now since our club's been turned upside down from being from rotting, from being a shell of a club, and an owner that didn't care about us or about results or about our future. We now have a new ownership that are taking us forward. We've got a new era, and ultimately has made us one of, if not the, in a long way, the richest club in the world. How, from a Brighton perspective, in the fan base, has the sort of reaction been to Newcastle's takeover? And what are sort of people's thoughts, and your thoughts in particular, around the takeover of Newcastle United? Chloe, we'll start with you.
Okay, I'll go first. I feel like at Brighton we're quite lucky with our owner, because Tony Bloom is a Brighton fan, so it's like, but obviously we've had our fair share of bad owners in the past. Yeah, I don't know. I was a bit skeptical of how much it would actually change your guys' results, especially short term. I felt maybe some of your fans were expecting a bit too much too soon, because obviously you've got a new man, or you're getting a new manager, and that changes things, but it obviously takes time to actually improve a squad and start getting results. And I feel nervous saying this close to playing you, because it'll probably come back to bite me. But I'm not sure how much quality you actually have in your squad.
Not a lot.
Anyway, so you sort of need a bit of a turnover, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I don't like clubs just throwing money at and buying success, so to speak. Because obviously I do support Brighton, and we don't have as big a budget as some other clubs. But I don't know. I just sort of, I'm very curious to see how it plays out, because I think it could go either way, really. I'm not sure if it will improve you that much. Anyway, I'm rambling. You go on.
What are your thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, Adam, a co-host of mine, really said it really well at the beginning of our podcast a while ago. The outrage around the people buying it, that train has long since left the station. We have been allowing nation states with questionable actions to run clubs for a long time. Roman Abramovich didn't get a hold of Chelsea and his money by being a very nice man. And so to me, the outrage of the Saudis is a little bit overdone. I'm very aware of what they're doing with the sports washing. They've been doing it with the WWE and the boxing. You know, they're getting all of these big events. You're not the first nor the last thing to kind of add to their portfolio. I think for me, you know, it is what it is. We're never going to be a big fish in this pond. So to me, it's not a big deal. Like Chloe, there's not a huge amount of quality in that squad. I sometimes wonder from an outside perspective as a total neutral if it would be better if you did go down to do a full overhaul and come back up that way. But realistically, financially speaking, of course, it would not be better. But yeah, you know, it will be interesting. Just the way that we've seen it handled with the manager, it seems that they aren't particularly astute at running a football club just yet. The Emery stuff seemed a bit of a mess. It seems like they didn't come in with a particularly concrete plan. Eddie Howe and Unai Emery are two very different managers with very different philosophies, which is odd that they were top of the list, so to speak. And yeah, you know, it is what it is. We'll see what happens. I'm very happy with Tony Bloom. Like Chloe said, it helps. He's a fan. And he has loads of money, not as much money as you guys, not even close. But, you know, it helps, right? That he also got a ton of money and his granddad was involved with the club for a long time before he was even born. His dad was involved in the club. And he clearly has an eye for football, which I think your current ownership clearly doesn't right now. And I think that is going to be a tough time for you know, those growing pains. I think Eddie Howe has a lot of work to do, educating them on just how this all works.
Great perspectives, guys. And there's a lot of things that you've said within your points that me and Chris, and we talk about this on a regular on the shows that we're on, that I would agree with 100%. You know, I saw Chris nodding with regards to when you mentioned, Chloe, the lack of quality in the squad. We've been banging on about this for a long time, is that there is a lack of quality, and there seems to be a lopsidedness in the way in which we recruit under Mike Ashley. We were very strong when Rafa Benitez left defensively. We didn't concede many goals, but over time those players have got older, and under a manager like Bruce have regressed. But what we have done is improved in the attacking areas, but we can't find the balance at the moment, and that's due to poor ownership. That's due to an owner that's not put money into the club how an owner should, and invest in the right areas. So, you know, I would completely agree with that. But, you know, the one thing I would say, and I'll let Chris sort of after this point, you know, because I'm sure Chris has got his opinions on this as well, is that what I would say is that, you know, as Newcastle fans knew that it wouldn't get turned over overnight. We knew it was going to be a slow build. We weren't expecting us to go and, you know, spend the 200 million that we apparently have in our sort of bank with regards to FIFA fair play, and spend a lot on buying the Mbappes and all the rest of it. That the media have created this narrative that that's what we expect. Well, not once have the Newcastle fans said that. It's a media created. I always remember when it first started, April 2020, that little team that came out with Messi, Bale, Coutinho, that was the Sun that created that, and all of a sudden it was the Newcastle fans that demanded it. It's never been the case. We just want a team that's not going to be in a relegation battle every year. We want to know that we want to open up the fixture list and know that we're not just going to be scraping to 40 points every season. We don't want to be a team like that. Nobody does, but we don't. We want our owners to have a little bit of ambition. We want them, our owners, to think and to know that we could push for mid-table, that we could in time push for maybe European spots, and that's not a guarantee. It's a could, and I think Newcastle would be happy with that. And we know that if we are going to be in a position fighting Champions League, that it is going to be, you know, 5 to 7 years potentially of investment, constant investment, to make that happen. And there's no guarantees that can happen, but what we like is the fact that there's an opportunity for that to be the case now with the type of wealth that they have. But Chris, what are your opinions on what Chloe and Josh have said?
No, I thought they were both spot on, to be fair. I mean, Chloe talked about a lack of quality, and it's funny because while you were talking, Chloe, and while Josh was talking, I was thinking, you probably look at Newcastle and think, like, I look at your team and I reckon I could probably name 5 or 6 players who may have been in the Championship for you. And if you look at our team, I could probably name about 10 who we're in the Championship and we've still got them. And this is the problem, as Pete said, you know, we've not invested in the team. The owner's not been interested. And Josh mentioned about the, you know, the new owners coming in and not being football people, which is absolutely right. And for me, the biggest thing the owners need to do is surround themselves with football people. And that needs to happen sooner rather than later. You know, we've still got Lee Charnley as the managing director. I know that was to kind of, you know, smooth things over and make sure that, you know, it was a smooth transition with them coming into the club. But for me now we've got rid of Ashley Ambrose, he'd be the next one out the door. I think they need that director of football. They need a little bit of direction. And they just need to surround themselves with football people. I mean, I look at the Brighton team and you've made some fantastic signings. And as Pete's just said then, it's about, like, we genuinely, we don't want, I'm saying we don't want, we probably do want, but we're not asking for your Messi, your Ronaldos, your Haalands, your Mbappes. We genuinely, that's not what it is. But it goes back to the media. It's always the media, you know, delusional Newcastle fans. Newcastle fans want this. Newcastle fans want Champions League. All we heard that week when we got taken over was, you know, Newcastle fans are going to have to be patient. You're not going to get top 4 in the next year or two. And we don't expect that. We do not expect that at all. We just want to see a club that is progressing year on year, like a bit like yourselves, a bit like a Leicester. We just want someone who, you know, if we need a new right back, let's go and spend 50 million. Like you got that Cucurella, didn't you? From was it Sociedad?
It was Getafe.
Oh, Getafe, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, you can see the difference he's made straight away. I'm a big fan of Tariq Lamptey. Yves Bissouma we've spoke about. In fact, while I'm in the middle of this rant, there was a question I have for you, and I've been dying to ask a Brighton fan because I genuinely don't know the answer. What happened to Matt Ryan? Because Matt Ryan was the number 1, and then all of a sudden he went on loan to Arsenal, which I thought was an odd move, and then he's left Arsenal, and I think he's gone abroad now to La Liga or.
And he was a fantastic goalkeeper.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? And then they brought this Sanchez in. But Sanchez looks great. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Obviously, you know, the upgrade is definitely there for all to see. But I was just surprised how he just kind of went out the back door, didn't he? He was just gone. And I was thinking, when I looked at the Brighton team, I used to think, well, Matt Ryan's a good goalie. And then all of a sudden, he was just gone. Was that a falling out with Potter, or did he not play how Potter wanted him to? Or did he want more of like a sweeper keeper, or what was the reason for that?
Superb shot stopper, not much else. Right. And I think under Hewton, that's great. Under Potter, it's not anywhere near enough. When you look at what he can do with his feet compared to Sanchez, it was nothing. He wanted a goalkeeper that can command his box. That definitely isn't Matty Ryan. You know, I thought Matt Ryan was good, but statistically, that first 5 months of that season that he got dropped, he was statistically the worst goalkeeper in the league for shot save percentage, for goals against, all of this stuff. And Potter and the team are big on the data. They must have seen it. Sanchez has been with us since he was 15. So like he's been with the Albion a long time. That's basically his boyhood club in a way. Like he's came up, he's and you know, he obviously knew all about him. Potter loves to look to the youth, and you know, he gave him a chance, and he went to the Euros with Spain this summer. Clearly that faith was well placed, and he's been superb again this year. He went to Arsenal. There was an alleged falling out at the training ground between him, Maupay, and Connolly. Nobody knows how true it was, but that was the first time he was dropped from the squad, that Spurs game where he was just like unceremoniously dropped. And then about 3 weeks later, he was promptly pushed out the door to Arsenal and then has gone to Sociedad. So I would say there was probably some smoke and fire in that allegation because the other two are still here and he isn't. So it's one of those things. But yeah, I think that's the full story behind him as best as I can gather.
Interesting. I've got a question off the back of that, and it seems to be a recurring theme. But like, does Maupay fall out with everybody? He seems to have arguments with like people on the pitch or in the back quite often. I might be totally wrong here, but that's just my impression of what I hear with regards to Maupay in behind the scenes. Is that a real thing?
I mean, I think he's definitely got a bit of an attitude, let's say, but I think he's a very passionate player. And I wouldn't have him any other way. I love how he winds up the opposition. It's just like when he celebrated in front of the Palace fans. It's like you have to love him as a Brighton fan. I can understand looking in, opposition fans might think he's a bit of a well, they might not like him very much, but
we don't mind swearing, Chloe. It's
fine. Say what you want. It's fine.
But yeah, I think he's my favourite Brighton player. I love him. And yeah, he does have his little spats, but I don't know. I think Matt Ryan was probably a bit like that too. And I do think the quality of his performances, the start of last season weren't very good. I said before, I think if we had Sanchez, we would have, in that first half, we would have finished higher. We were conceding a lot of goals. I think it was against Everton, we lost like 4-2. It's like if you're scoring 2 goals, that should really be enough to win a game most of the time. So yeah, and our defence, I think our defence looks better with Sanchez as well. You can tell they have a lot more confidence in him. And obviously he actually catches the ball from corners and stuff. And I don't think over the time we had Matt Ryan, I saw him do that once. So.
No. Good to know. Was just interested, that's all. Just because I'd seen a few bits with regards to him. It's probably our version of Lascelles. Lascelles he's the captain. He seems to have fights with everybody. Mo Diarme, Matt Ritchie. I can't remember who it was. Who was it just recently? Isaac Hayden.
After
the game, in the changing rooms, he's. Maupay is probably our version of Lascelles, but significantly more talented player is Maupay compared to Jamal Lascelles, I've got to be honest. But at this point, I think there's a few questions in the chat. So, Chris, I don't know if you want to fire through some of these questions that are in there.
Yeah, we've had loads of interesting questions for Josh and Chloe. I'm just gonna. There was a couple I wanted to highlight straight away, and then I'll read them out. Sorry, just give me one moment.
I think I was just as you're looking for some.
Go on,
I think
Pete.
there's one near the bottom from Yano. Do you guys know who's responsible for recruitment at Brighton?
It's a big question. I think there are multiple people involved in that process, from what I can gather from Paul Barber and the conversations he has with fans in general. I would go as far as to have an educated guess. Dan Ashworth is highly involved. Potter and his team highly involved. Potter also brought over a fellow called Kyle McCauley from Swansea, who was his head of recruitment there. They did a deal to bring him in. Paul Winstanley is our head scout and has been for a long time, so I suspect that was part of the group as well. And then you've just got probably Tony Bloom as well, in terms of what he hopes to see coming into the team. A lot of owners shouldn't get involved. For him, I'm perfectly happy with it because he seems to have an eye for what he wants. And I think in terms of how far involved Bloom gets, I think you're talking about, no, I don't want to sign that 29-year-old striker no matter how good he is, because I'd rather have the one that's 23. That's and at the end, the buck stops with him. It's his checkbook. And I think that's the kind of involvement you see from Tony, where you're like, oh, we've got this striker that scored 38 goals last season. It'll cost us 30 million, but he's 29. Or do you want the player that scored 15 goals last season, but he's 23 and could end up becoming a real gem? Bloom would rather spend the money on the 23-year-old. and that speaks volumes to the vision he has, and every credit to him, because look where we are. So
yeah. Got a question here for Chloe, but we can also ask Josh as well. Chloe, if Potter got sacked, would you take Steve Bruce, as he's a nice man, allegedly?
No, probably not. I wouldn't really. I mean, we had Hewton, and he was a nice man, but
Yeah.
in the end, he probably wouldn't have kept us up that next season. So no, I wouldn't, because I don't think he's that good of a manager, and I think we could
like that,
probably
Chloe.
find someone better.
You've definitely got a few claps there from Newcastle fans in the chat from that assessment, a very brief assessment on Steve Bruce. But Josh, what's your opinions? Would you take Steve Bruce if, for some miracle, that Graham Potter got sacked?
I would rather have myself and Chloe as a joint team take this team forward than Steve Bruce. I was stunned when you appointed him, and I have been stunned every year since that you've stayed up. I do not rate Steve Bruce in the slightest at all. And we heard all the same stuff. He's a very nice man. He's a good man. He's done this with Chris Hewton. Yes, he is. I'm sure he is. But he isn't a Brighton manager. He isn't a Newcastle manager. That's not who he is. And the time was, I was going to say the time was right. The time was never right for him to be Newcastle manager. He's simply not good enough. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask you both this question, but Mad Mag Mark has asked, and it's an interesting one. Would 40 million get Yves Bissouma to Newcastle in January?
Touchy subject.
Yeah.
What's the situation with Bissouma? Are we going to see him on Saturday at the Amex, or not likely?
This is a very controversial subject with very different opinions, and I know that Chloe has a different one to myself just from social media that we've had. He played against Liverpool, so if he's playing against Liverpool, I think he's going to be playing from here on out. And he's just had his bail extended to December 6th. I have a lot of opinions and thoughts on that in terms of. I have a law degree and experience in that field to an extent with the police and stuff like that, and I have thoughts and feelings that I probably shouldn't say on air, and we'll see what happens with it going forward. But I suspect the club are playing him because they are well aware of what's going on in the background and are making that decision based on what they know. So yes, I would expect to see him on Saturday.
Okay, interesting one, but.
What about you, Chloe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he'll play now. He obviously came on against Leicester and then he played against Liverpool. So yeah, I think he will start him on Saturday. Yeah, I mean, it's a whole complicated situation. Nobody really knows the ins and outs of it. Yeah. As for would 40 million get him? I would personally say no. I would go a little bit higher than that, given that we got 50 for Ben White. And I think Bissouma is a better player.
Yeah. I'm going to rephrase this question from Yano ever so slightly, because it is a really good question. Yano's put, who are Brighton going to get when Potter gets tapped up by a bigger side? It's only a matter of time. So what I'm going to say is, firstly, do you think that Potter will stay for the duration of his contract? I know you mentioned he's got, is it another 6 years? But also what I wanted to ask was, and I know it's a bit of a difficult question, but if Potter was to leave, like, what kind of pedigree of manager would you be looking for? Maybe, and I know that's a very broad question, but would you be looking for someone with the same style as Potter? Are you incredibly happy with what Potter is bringing to Brighton, or is there a couple of things that you would maybe change and look for in a different manager?
Big question. Chloe, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know if he'll stay the duration of his contract, because obviously that is quite a long time. But I do think we'll keep him for the rest of the season at least. I really think he's building something at Brighton, and you can see that it's sort of finally coming together. And I don't think any of the clubs that he's been linked with, I'm not sure how good it would be for him in his career if he left. So I don't know if he'll stay with his whole contract. I don't think he'll leave yet. As for who we'll get, I really don't know. I do like the style of football that we play under Potter, so I would like somebody who plays similarly. I wouldn't want one of the sort of merry-go-round managers that you get. The defensive ones just to keep you up. I wouldn't want someone like that. It would probably be someone, I don't know. I don't really know. I can't really think of any names, but it would probably be someone unexpected, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that Tony Bloom would very much like them to come from within. I think he's showing that from the fact that he's brought Bruno in from being captain of the club to being a coach, assistant coach. We signed Lallana based on the fact that we were going to give him a 3-year deal instead of a 1, with the option to become a coach for the Albion. That was the entire intention, I think, was to have him then become a coach for us. We have this entire team we've brought in to work under him. We're kind of developing these under 21 coaches, under 18 coaches. I think if he does see out the duration of his contract, it would not be the most surprising thing in the world to see Bruno step up and become manager. By the time at that point it's 2025, Bruno will be 41. He's done just about everything in the game that you can at the top level in Spain and the UK. He knows Brighton inside out. He knows what the philosophy is, and he's bought in clearly. And the fans would just about die. I think that every single one of us would be unbelievably behind him if he was to get it in 4 years' time, because that's a long time. If he was to leave this summer for Spurs or United or all these big clubs that like supposedly sniff around and then go away, or even England post Qatar, which has been my tip for a while. I think that wouldn't shock me. And another one that wouldn't shock me is Manchester City. Given that Pep is a massive fan of his, I don't think it's just lip service. I think he really does love him. And if Pep had any say, like Fergie did when he left, I think Potter would be on his shortlist of progressive managers for City to take. Whether they would want him, given what they're expecting, probably not, but he would be a problem. In terms of who would bring in if it was next year, my tip for a year has been the same, and I'm sticking with it. I honest to God think we would go and get Nathan Jones from Luton. He has played with the Albion for like a bajillion games. He coached under us. He was our interim manager between Huppier and Hewton. He left when Hewton brought in his own staff. And he has performed well above expectations at Luton and knows the Albion inside and out. Plays good football for a team like Luton that really shouldn't be playing as well as they're playing. And he would be an affordable and realistic signing that is exactly up their alley in terms of what they would be looking for. It would still be a worry for me, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the name that you'd see. It would be just very Brighton to do something like that.
Interesting. Okay, so we'll move on. I know there's some other questions in the chat as well, one or two for me and Chris to answer as well. But let's get down to it. Saturday, 5:30, Brighton against Newcastle. From your perspectives, okay, who do you think are going to be the players in Brighton's team that are going to cause Newcastle the most problems? But also, who are you worried about from Newcastle's team that could potentially hurt you guys on Saturday and cause you guys problems?
Tariq Lamptey. is going to be a serious problem if he plays. I think he just about had St. Maximin in tears the last time we met. And I'm a massive St. Maximin fan, by the way, so that's not meant to totally laugh at him. Like, if I could pick one player from your team to take over, well, him and Wilson, I would take them in a heartbeat. But Lamptey had him on toast, and if he's fit and playing and fully up to date, which it looks like he is, it's going to be another rough day at the office for St. Max. And then if Bissouma is playing again, Bissouma is going to be a nightmare too. He runs the middle of the park, just against everybody, including those top 6 teams. So those lower teams are going to have a real tough time against him. And then Cucurella as well. We're looking like we may actually, for the first time ever, field a squad with Cucurella, Lamptey, and Bissouma. Incredibly excited to see how that turns out, because that is a nasty attack in 3. That can just run the game on any side of the pitch, which is quite scary to think of for an Albion fan, because you're not used to that level of talent at just about every area of the pitch. And when you have that level of talent, players like Trossard and Maupay can just have a field day up front. So I think you've got that entire line of Cucurella, Bissouma, and Lamptey are going to be a problem for any team in the division. But Newcastle will have a tough day at the office if they're all playing.
Chloe?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. I'm wondering if Maupay will be back in the squad, because obviously he was dropped against Liverpool, but I think he scored against you both games last season. And it would be nice to see him score again. I also think, Trossard's in good form at the moment. I think he's quite an underrated player by a lot of our fans. But he can really, I think he's good. I don't really know what to add. I think you pretty much summed it up. We have got such a good squad at the moment. I mean, we'll probably lose now I've said that, but I think that I'm quite excited to see Lamptey and Cucurella on each wing. I think that would be very good, because sort of then we can attack from sort of both sides. You don't know where it's going to come from. It's something. In terms of your players, which worry me a little bit, I think Sam Maximum, obviously, I think he's a very good player. I also think Wilson worries me a little bit. I don't know what sort of form he's in this season, but I think he can be quite threatening.
He scored 4 in 5, Wilson has, this season, and he had a number of games where he was out injured. So to still have 4 in 5 this season is not a bad record, especially for a team that doesn't create a lot of chances either.
I think a lot of Brighton fans often say about Wilson and compare him to Maupay in terms of like how clinical they both are. So I think it would be interesting to see that the weekend. I think I'm not overly worried, but at the same time, I don't want to be cocky and say that it'll be an easy win for us or anything, because you could totally surprise us and take the 3 points. But I'm not too worried. Quietly confident, I think.
Good way to be. Chris, from the Newcastle point of view, who do you think are the players that we need to be worried about from a Brighton perspective, and who do you think could turn up for Newcastle on Saturday and really kind of cause Brighton some problems at the Annex?
I think I agree with Chloe and Josh, to be honest. I mean, as I've already said, I'm a big fan of a lot of the Brighton players. I think Maupay, we were talking about him earlier, and he's just, the thing with Maupay, he reminds me a little bit of Suarez and Tevez, in that he's just a pain in the arse. He's one of those players, like we had one in Bellamy. He's one of those players where you don't want to play against him, but if he plays for your team, you love him because he's just always there and he's hassling and nagging and moaning and whinging, and then he'll score a goal, and you're like, yeah, that's what he does. So Maupay, I'd be pleased if he's not in the starting 11. I've got to be honest. I would say Leandro Trossard. I really like him. I don't think he's made that much of a good start to the season. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know last season he was kind of on fire, and I was thinking to myself, bloody hell, if he goes up another level here, other clubs are going to start looking at him. But I've not seen anything from him this season, I don't think. But again, I'm not a Brighton fan. I don't watch, the full 90 minutes like you two do. So correct me there if I'm wrong. But the ones that are sticking out to me are Maupay and Trossard. But also, and I haven't mentioned them yet, and I'm surprised I haven't. And it fascinates me. Does Dan Burn play left back for you? Like he's about 8'10", and he's massive. And I think, how's he a left back? But he worries me at set pieces. Yeah, he worries me at set pieces. He really does, because he's so big and he doesn't half get down the wing. When I've seen him, he is up and down the wing. So I'm going to say Dan Burn. I'm worried.
Is he injured?
Oh,
yeah,
right,
he got
okay.
injured against Leicester in the cup. I don't think he's fit yet.
No, it's not.
Well, I'm not worried now.
I also, and I'm sure Chloe will agree, I've never seen a man so tall, so ineffective offensively in the air.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would rather have any of Webster, Dunk, and Duffy ahead of him at a corner than Dan Burn.
Wow.
It doesn't make any logistical sense, but
no.
he is so ineffective in the air going forward.
Oh, yeah. Right. Okay.
I'm not sure I've ever actually seen him like jump. And if I have, it's like
he doesn't need to.
He doesn't really jump. Like I suppose he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't need to. But so yeah, he's not as good as in the air as you'd expect.
No.
But I was going to say something else, but I've gone so
yeah. So, Chris, any from Newcastle?
Sorry, I didn't even touch on our players then, did I? I was too busy waxing lyrical about Brighton.
They won't be happy in the chat, mate. They won't be happy in the chat.
No, they won't, will they? They won't. It's just the same ones. It's got to be. If St. Maximin turns up, and everyone knows my thoughts on St. Maximin. If St. Maximin turns up and he's running at defences, for me, he's one of the best dribblers, if not in the Premier League, but in Europe. So if he's on form and he's up for it, and he's got his game face on, then he'll cause any defensive problem. So St. Maximin is obviously the biggest threat for me. Keeping Callum Wilson fit's a big thing. Again, a little bit of a Maupay type player where he's a fox in the box. He gets things done. So it's really St. Maximin and Wilson. And yeah, just roll on January, Pete, and we can hopefully get a couple more offensive players who can help Wilson and St. Maximin add to the goal tally, because outside of them two, I don't look at our team and think, he could pop up with a goal. Or you remember, it was last season, wasn't it, where we were on that run with all our centre backs were scoring, and it was a good job they were. Because if those two aren't firing, then it'll be a difficult evening for us at the Amex.
Yeah, I have to agree. The players, some of the players have already been mentioned. Basuma, if he plays, I didn't realise Lamptey was back, so that's obviously another worry. Cucurella, if I pronounced that right, he was a terrific signing for you. I was really surprised, if I'm honest, being honest, when he signed for you guys. He is a terrific player. And he's had a really good start to your season. But for me, we're not good with set plays, in particular defending corners, and this guy causes havoc in the attacking areas. He doesn't always get on the end and score goals from corners, but he'll make something happen. And I've seen it in plenty of games over the last 2 or 3 years, where he's he's caused a lot of problems, which have led to Brighton goals. So I do worry about that, because it's one area where we don't defend well. We don't defend corners well. It's not like we've not got tall players that are good in the air or aerially. It's just that we, organisational wise, we just don't know how to stop opposition getting through. So, and I know you guys work on those set plays really well. So that's a big issue for me. So yeah, in terms of Newcastle, you've said it with Wilson and Alan Saint-Maximin. I'm still waiting for this man to turn up this season, Joe Willett.
Yeah.
We need a game from him. Obviously, we were never ever going to expect that he was going to score the type of goals that he did at the back end of last season. It was kind of a freak amount of goals that he was scoring that run. But he's a talented player, and he needs to regain that form to show us what he's all about. So they're the three players for me. Yeah, it all depends on whether Miguel Almiron's going to play or whether it would be Ryan Fraser. But yeah, we need one or two players to turn up, because it's always the same. It's always Wilson. It's always Alan Saint-Maximin that we depend on. But it's actually the other players that we need to turn up. And if they turn up, then hopefully it will give us a little bit of a chance to win the game. So right. We're going to move on, because we have our stat time, and it wouldn't be our stat time without having
the video.
The main man. I do have the video. It makes me chuckle
the video. You're going to
time.
love this video, guys. You're going to love it. I
Keith,
love it.
We're going to welcome Keith in with some stats for Brighton Newcastle.
Evening all.
Keith. How are you?
Keith, you all right, mate?
Not so bad. How's everything? And welcome, Chloe and Josh. I hope you're all well, and I hope Chris, and I hope Pete, you're well too.
Very, very good.
Well, mate.
I always love that video. It always makes me chuckle every time. It's a fantastic entrance. And Daz has said it right. 00 Stato. So welcome in. Look, what have you got for us? Look, I say this every week. I feel like a broken record here, but please tell me you've got something good, stat related for us Newcastle fans.
Well, I'll just start by saying that, never mind James Bond, this week has turned out to be a mission impossible for Newcastle getting another new manager, hasn't it? You know, it's turned out to be a right nightmare, hasn't it, in the last few weeks? But I've got some stats. I'll try and end on a positive, because Josh and Chloe are going to like this with these stats, because Brighton have turned out to be something of a bogey team for Newcastle in recent seasons. Overall record as well, played 28. Newcastle have won 9. They've drawn 7 and lost 12. So Brighton have got the edge there. And Brighton have never lost in 8 Premier League game meetings with Newcastle. They've won 4 and they've drawn 4 as well. Brighton have scored 9 goals in 8 games in this fixture, compared to 1 goal from Newcastle, which was Ote Perez. Brighton have also been better defensively, 7 clean sheets in 8 Premier League games as well, compared to 3 from Newcastle. So that's over about a 4-season spell there. I'm going to go a bit more positive here. Newcastle's last wins against Brighton, the double 2-0 and 2-1 away wins in the championship season. But they're the only 2 wins in 16 games against Brighton, going back to 1990, which includes 2 wins, 6 draws and 8 defeats. And add to Chloe's point there earlier about Neal Maupay. Neal Maupay has scored in both games last season. He scored 3 goals against Newcastle altogether. He scored 2 at St James's Park, where Kyle Apmedy did pretty much tear Newcastle apart that day. And Maupay again is Brighton's top goal scorer this season, I believe, with 4 goals in 10 games. And Brighton's home record this season is 1-2, drawn 1, and lost 2 at the Amex. And Newcastle, ending on a downer, have only not scored in the 4 games against Brighton, the last 4. But on a plus point, Eddie Howe, career win record. His career win record overall as a manager, 41.8%. It's a lot better than Bruce. But I would just add an air of caution with that. His win ratio in the Premier League, 29.4. 56 wins from 190 in the Premier League.
Interesting. Okay, so a little bit of positivity with how moving forward, but certainly with this game on Saturday, those stats are not looking good for us at all. And I saw a little smile there from Josh and Chloe. That's made them even more confident now going into Saturday than they already were. But look, it is always going to be, regardless of who was in charge, without improving this squad in the transfer window. We were always going to struggle. So we're always kind of hoping on a prayer going into Saturday with regards to this. But I suppose this leads me nicely now, sort of into unless we've got a couple of more questions, we'll lead into the predictions. Don't know if there's any more questions out there. Chris, there's one from Brew Y. He's asked me, have I got my tickets for the Leicester game away? I have got my ticket. It is already in the bank. I'm looking very much for that. As a Leicester lad that's a Newcastle fan, I'm looking hopefully that we can stuff those 3 points where the sun doesn't shine and take them home, so I can laugh and point at all my mates that support Leicester. But we'll see about that. There's a long way to go, but I will be going to that game. Is there any questions in there?
Well, there was 2 questions, Pete, that I wanted to bring up. One of them was somebody was asking how your back was.
You know what? I am currently dosed up to the hill with a very, very strong painkiller after spending the best part of 6 hours in the hospital yesterday. So yeah, the reason why I can actually sit today rather than when we did the fans forum on my knees doing that show is because of this very, very strong painkiller. So yeah, my whole leg is numb still. I can still feel the numbness, but pain-free at the moment. Can't walk, but hey, we're working our way there. I'm absolutely gutted because I was in the away end Saturday for Brighton. I had my ticket and I'm about to give it away because I knew I wouldn't be able to make the fixture because I wouldn't be able to do the level of walking because I'll be getting the trains and stuff. So absolutely gutted to give that ticket up because the Amex is one stadium I've never been to and I would love to have gone there and experienced it Saturday. So, but hey, I'm sure there'll be plenty of other times to visit and hopefully we might get a win the next time I go.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And then the other question, which I'm sure you were probably going to lead on to anyway, Pete, is somebody was asking what Chloe and Josh for prediction-wise on the weekend.
Let's do it. So, Chloe, Josh, what are your predictions? Come 7:30 Saturday night? What do you think the score will be?
Am I going?
Go on,
Okay.
Go on Chloe.
I'm going to go 3-0. Why not?
Not again, Chloe. I can't do another 3-0. That was one of the worst games in life. That honestly, that was one of that game when Keith was talking about the stats. I had visions of that game going through my head again because that was literally one of the worst Newcastle performances I've seen in years. It was horrendous.
I remember when I think we went for a bit of a poor spell before we beat you or after we beat you. But anyway, I remember seeing you and thinking they're going to go down this season, but you didn't somehow. No.
Yeah. It's a miracle how we stayed up.
It was, definitely. Josh, what are you thinking then? Prediction.
Similar. I'm going to say 2-0 Albion. There's Geordie Toon for Life in the chat said, where is the area where Brighton is susceptible to on Saturday? And the reason I'm going with 2-0 is really based on that question. The main places that we're susceptible is set pieces and on the break. Man City did it with great aplomb, absolutely ripped us apart. Manchester City, you are not yet. And to me, that I was told by a lot of Watford fans that they were very dangerous on the counter-attack. And we dominated possession for so many minutes and such a length of time that by the time it came time to a counter-attack, they'd ran out of legs. Even in the first half, they'd spent the last 5 minutes pressing and trying to get the ball and dealing with that when they finally got the ball and wanted to press with us, like Emmanuel Dennis and Sarr, who are rapid, Sarr and St. Maximin are very similar, powerful, strong, very skillful players. And they just didn't have anything because they'd spent so much time ball chasing. Newcastle allow us to play in that way. That's why we beat you so comfortably last year. If they continue with that, we'll do the same again, I think. And the only difference is I don't think we'll score as many, simply because I just think that you'll be slightly better in terms of that new manager bounce. I think you'll keep enough to keep a goal out. But I think that the way we play is just all wrong. Styles make fights, right? And I think that for the Newcastle team, pre-Howe, rather, before Howe gets in there and actually changes you up in the coming weeks, I think that this is one of those games like Watford where I'm really confident, which is rare as a Brighton fan, especially in the Premier League, to feel confident. And I know Chloe said it earlier, it may well come back to bite us, but it's nice to at least feel confident every now and again.
I would agree. I'd just love for us to feel confident for change, but I think we need our first win first before we can start thinking like that, and maybe a few signings. But Keith, what's your prediction going into Saturday? Is it going to be more sorrow for the Newcastle faithful, or is our tide going to turn?
Yeah, I mean, looking at those figures in the lead up, and also as well, I was quite impressed with Brighton last week at Anfield. To come back from 2-0 down and snatch that point. Not many people do that, and players do that in recent games at Anfield. Obviously, forget last season, but the season, few seasons before that, and this season, Liverpool's form, they're going to be up there. So I'm worried, I've got to say. Looking at the predicted lineups as well, there's your Lallana's, your Basumas, your Maupays, and your Trossards, and your Lampard. There's just too many big names there for me. That you look at Newcastle, and we're struggling here. I think maybe 3 players, and I want to be wrong here. I was thinking before today, after yesterday's bad day, I was thinking, right, this is going to be another 3-0 job here. But Brighton haven't won, I believe, in about 4 or 5 games in the league, and maybe Newcastle could snatch a draw here if they just follow the same tack that they did with Chelsea for about 60 odd minutes and just sort of hold Brighton out. They might hang on for a point, and because there isn't really that much going forward, and maybe this Eddie Howe in the stands might be sort of like galvanise the team a little bit. But sadly, that's the best I can hope for. Otherwise, I'm going 3-0 again, or a comfortable 2-3-0 at Brighton.
Oh, okay, not looking good. Chris, have you got any positive dust to sprinkle on this fan base, Newcastle fan base at the moment going into Saturday, or is it going to be more dross that we're going to see at the Amex?
I think it's going to be more dross, if I'm honest. I hate saying it, Pete. I've got all eyes now on the Brentford game. That's our next game after the international break. I think Howe, will be in place by then. He'll have had a good 10 days with the players. I think to expect. Do you know what? I really hope he doesn't take charge for the game on Saturday, and I think he'd be stupid if he agrees to it, because he needs. I think he'll. I hope he has input. And I hope, obviously, he'll speak to Jones, who I'm sure he trusts, and he'll take his advice and things like that. And maybe he'll have an input on the lineup. But if I was him, I wouldn't go anywhere near that dugout, because I think without a proper plan in place, I think Graham Potter's Brighton just tear us apart again. I really do. I I'm going to say 2-0. I think 2-0 Brighton. I think Brighton comfortably win. But, you know, if we were to get a point, it'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? I mean, I'd take a point all day long. If you'd offered me a point now, I'd take it. But yeah, sadly, I don't think we'll see the new manager bounce until the Brentford game a week on Saturday. Or 2 weeks on Saturday.
Yeah, that's right. 2 weeks on Saturday. Look, I need some positivity, so I'm going to throw some out there. I'm not saying we're going to go and we're going to trounce Brighton. Far from it. They're a fantastic team and playing well. But I think Dubravka coming back in will be big. If Goldalo was in, I would fully expect us to concede a heavy amount of goals. But Dubravka is a significantly better goalkeeper, and he takes pressure off our defence. And I think we're going to need that on Saturday. I still think you guys will score, but I think for the points that Josh mentioned, from a counter-attacking point of view, we can still cause problems. So I'm going to go for an entertaining 2-2. I don't know whether that's the painkillers talking that are currently in my system, or whether that's me being just overly hopeful, or whether it's me thinking that Howe's going to have an input in the tactics and maybe change one or two things round, which has been mooted. Has been talking that he might not be managing the game, but he might have a say on how the game gets played. It could potentially make a difference. So yeah, I'm going to go 2-2. I fully expect for Pie. Yeah, Jeff. I knew Jeff would come back to him. Yeah, I am on drugs. They're very, very strong. I'm a little bit woozy at the moment, so maybe that's why I've said 2-2. But I'm living off hope. I fully expect to have Pie thrown in my face come 7:30 on Saturday. And I'd be crying into my pillow, not because of pain, but because we're lost at another game. But let's see. But look, we'll end it there. A massive thanks to Josh and Chloe for coming on. Absolutely spot on, guys. Thank you for taking the time to talk Brighton and Newcastle. I'm assuming both of you will be at the game on Saturday?
Yes, I will.
I definitely will not, because I'm on the east coast of the US. But I will be watching. It will be 1:30 in the afternoon over here. So,
wow. So yeah, that's fair enough. You'll be hopefully in some sort of sunshine, watching and kicking back, and you'll be obviously looking for a win. But I know, Chloe, you've been to a number of games. I've seen your obviously your pictures on Twitter from Anfield. I knew you'd be there shouting on your boys on Saturday. So massive thanks to you guys. Hopefully, in the turnaround fixture, we can catch up again and maybe talk about our fortunes since we've had this chat, and how hopefully we maybe are in a much better position the next time that we talk, and it might be a little bit more on an even keel, but we'll see. Keith, as always, with the stats, thank you for joining us late on. Really appreciate it. Chris, the main man, it's great to have you back. I know you'd missed a couple of away days. So.
Yeah. Great to be back, mate. Yeah. I've missed talking, to opposing fans. I love me football, as you know, and I like talking about other clubs as well, not just Newcastle. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the show. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. And always, thank you to everyone in the chat. There's been some fantastic questions, and I know Chris has put the message out. Some of those questions definitely need to be asked tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because as always, tomorrow is Loaded Mag. We are back 8 o'clock tomorrow with NUFC 360, the very, very popular and famous Newcastle Twitter handle that gives us all of our news with regards to Newcastle. We'll be having representatives. Everyone will be on the show talking all things Newcastle with us, and the boys will be talking hopefully the new signing, the new manager, Eddie Howe. So come armed with your questions. We'll be discussing and we'll be answering those questions. We're still on the race to 2K subs. Only been going 6 months, but we are flying. Really thankful for all the support that we've been getting from everybody. Keep up that support. It's been absolutely amazing, and we're on the way. And as well, in the top left-hand corner, Central Ale, Bruce the only Bruce we want representing our club. Chris has been there. He's met Bruce. He's brought some ales. I still want that jam donut ale. I will be going up to Newcastle shortly, and I will be buying the whole lot from you, Bruce. So please stock up. We'll be ready. Okay. So everyone else, massive thanks to you all that support that you've been giving us. And as always, we do love playing away. You guys take care.